So, here we are again. Another episode of Scuba and the Ry.
Guy. He's over here, and that's me.
Yep.
Supposedly.
And, we're not going to be alone, because making his debut to hang out with us is Professor Penumbra.
What evil lurks within the hearts of the comic book industry? Probably somebody else, but I'd like to think I have a good idea.
At least I'm not there feeling the evilness.
No, we're not feeling evil.
Corner.
But, asking him to come and join us was kind of because we got tech covered, we got games covered, we got movies covered. But another great pillar of geekdom has got to be comic books.
Them pages are good.
Absolutely.
I mean, so having Professor Penumbra here to talk comics, and we'll kind of throw that in and see how that plays out. I'm sure there's a lot of interesting ones. Let's kind of kick that off. And since you are our guest today, Professor, why don't you tell us what you've been up to?
Actually, just lots of reading and catching up on... I have such a backlog of comic books. I've been reading some older stuff. I'm currently working on the first run on X-Force. I've also been reading some old Batman issues, and the more recent, we have this event going on in the DC universe called Leviathan, which I've been trying to keep up with. So, yeah, that's pretty much been my week.
What's Leviathan about?
It's
is it another reset of the universe?
No, actually, this is supposed to be a mystery. They're bringing in some of the top detectives in the DC universe. We don't just have Batman, but also like The Question, and Lois Lane is actually a major part of this. It started as a story within the Superman comics. This is Brian Michael Bendis's first crossover event for DC, since he jumped in on Superman in Action Comics. He did the build-up with Action, and Leviathan is an organization, one of the many spy-like organizations that DC has had. They've decided to revitalize it and put a new mysterious leader in charge of this group. There are so many people that are trying to guess who this new masked leader of Leviathan is. Talia al Ghul was the previous leader of Leviathan, but she's been disposed.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
I guess I'm hoping it is not Randall Savage, and I am hoping it is not Lex Luthor. The two of them always seem to be the two that you think of as running these clandestine organizations.
Well, they seem to always be, regardless if it's the comics or TV.
Well, so far, all that we know is that this person knows who Clark Kent Superman is, and they do not want to come into conflict with Superman or the Justice League. They've already exposed and destroyed almost all of the other spy organizations, like Cobra and Argus and stuff like that.
That is pretty interesting.
Yes.
So yeah, I can see why that sucked in a lot of time this week.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. The mystery is still going on. Issue 2 came out, I think it's this week. So I have to pick that up tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah. So.
What about you, Ry? What you been up to?
Not as eventful as spies and jumping into a mysterious villain. More of jumping into training session at work. Doing a lot of training for some new and old people. And also, we celebrated my best friend Crystal's 30th birthday.
Nice!
So, me and my girlfriend Angelica went there and had some sushi at Sushi King, because you knew me and sushi.
Yeah.
I love them wet fishes.
I was just there a couple hours ago.
So you know about them wet fishes.
Yes.
There you go.
Very delicious.
Slippery.
Nutritious
Sushi King,
and delicious.
that's the one where it's the all you can eat as long as you eat it.
Oh yes, it's the one where they make it on order, and it's the only kind of buffet that I like, because they make it on order.
Yes.
Whereas if it's just chilling there on the tray, you don't know if there's poisoning happening. But
but also there's also the fine print, like order what you will eat. If you order something and don't eat it, they add to the charge because you wasted product.
Yeah.
That's why I'm feeling a little sick. I kind of overdid it.
It's all right.
How can you overdo it with sushi? I mean, come on.
You can never overdo it, but then again, I have. So I kind of just stepped over my own toes.
I've done sushi with you before. It's it's experience.
So, but yeah, just the big training mode going on.
Okay.
So,
anything on the deck for the weekend?
Just some more reading, some more writing, working on the stories that I mentioned, maybe a few more poems and stuff. See what happens.
You gonna get excuse me? You getting another book together for publishing?
I have planned out. I've been wanting to write an inspiration book based on some issues in the past that I've had. So I finally put down an outline of how I got through some certain bad times.
Nice.
So hopefully I can start writing that soon. So other than that, maybe another poetry book. So maybe you see that within the next year.
All right. And we'll, of course, we'll have all the helpful info to find it to show our support.
Oh, yeah. It'll probably be on Amazon, the Apple Bookstore, and all the other downloadable.
So great how you can self-publish so many things these days.
Oh, yes. Lulu.com is a great resource for that.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, for me, I guess I've been here, there, and everywhere. I mean, last weekend we had we did a kind of a special D&D session for Professor Penumbra's birthday, and that was fun. I mean, previously we had a character who had decided to follow a gunslinger, and that did not end well.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
Guns a-blazing, but no kind of good blazing.
No. But apparently his character came back.
Shocker.
I know. Well, I'm playing it off as he's done this before. It took him a few days. Maybe thinking like the whole Highlander thing. Or actually, we were discussing the spell reincarnation.
Okay.
So where you come, if you die and someone casts the spell, you come back as a different race, but you retain all your memories and skills. So It's like, okay, so that's how I'm playing it off. That's not what's happening. My character's already kind of, wait a minute. You couldn't do that a week ago. What's the deal? But so far, he's played it off as, so my character's none the wiser so far. But,
dust off your shoulders.
For now, but what kind of craziness.
As the DM of this particular game, I am keeping my mouth shut.
The professor has spoken.
Yes.
I will sit here and listen to all the speculation, and I'll just smile at you.
Yeah, the people playing, and then you have the people cheering from the background.
Yeah, it was great. It was a good session. Some investigation type things, Not as many hijinks ensued, but it was definitely a fun one. And then, of course, going through the normal work week, and today took the kids out to the airsoft field to spend the day because I volunteer out there, and that was such a phenomenal experience today because my daughter had broke her leg. She got her cast off, so now she could go out to the field and play. And so seeing this little 4-foot girl walk around with an airsoft rifle and trying to get used to it. Well, the beauty of a community is a bunch of the guys who were out there playing just pulled her in and embraced her. We were doing a morning game where we knock over. It's kind of you knock over barrels, right? Each team has a barrel. You have to knock over the other teams. Her team won both of the first two games, and then for the third game, they're like, let's have some fun. Let's do a VIP escort. So picture this. A bunch of guys who 5'5", 6 foot, look like they just walked off the Modern Warfare game, have this little girl in the center and walk her through just like she was some major congressman or president, whatever, go through, and they walked her on the far right. I brought her in, and then when I got to the barrel, I was like, go get it. She's sitting there trying to shoot the barrel down and finally goes and pushes it over. So it's like everybody's cheering. But it's great because these guys, they could have totally gone the jerk route. They could have totally gone, kind of brushed her away. No, they embraced her. So it really makes me appreciate the community.
Yeah, here's a kid on the field. Easy target. Pop, pop, Yeah, I'm glad that they didn't go that route,
Oh, no. There's quite a few of them. They fist bumps and everything, and then later in the day we were playing a scenario. I'm standing in the center of town. I got a sniper on the second floor of the tower shooting out, and at one point he's like, "Oh, I hit her. I think I hit her. I hit her again. I hit your daughter." It's like, but I don't think she's calling her hit. I'm like, "You calling your hit? Hit." puts her rag on, and it's like, but it turns out when he shot at her, it actually hit the rifle she was carrying. And on the field, if their primary weapon, if you're hit there, it does not count as a kill.
Oh.
So she's spending a lot of time holding it across the chest because it's so big and she's so little.
Yeah.
But one of the best things about it is when in doubt, call a hit, and everybody will be cool. Because sometimes that distance,
it's hard to
and
judge
she's a small
distance.
target already.
Hey,
But yeah, she had a great time.
good sport.
Oh yeah, she crashed later in the day, but she definitely wanted to go back. It was a good time for everybody.
Yeah, I could see her enjoying that because she's a little psychopath anyway.
Yes, she loves to run and gun. Now she can run and gun physically. So
No, but she plays D&D with us, right?
Okay.
She's got this character. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, reminds me of that mute girl in Ruby. The one with the pink and the red, or the pink and the black hair. Neapolitan, right?
Okay.
He's always got this character. It's like, picture this, like half one color, half of another color, Harley Quinn type thing, and whatnot. And she plays a rogue.
Yeah.
And she is just crazy.
Okay.
And then one day we had a friend of ours come over to sit in with a game with us, and he didn't have a character, so we gave him her character, and he's reading this going, "What?" So I mean, she's that one. It's like person falls into a 10-foot pit and hurts themselves. She's the one who goes, "Ha ha."
Of course.
Yeah, she's a total Nelson. It's fun. I mean, she's really getting into it, and I'm really happy that she's getting into these things.
Yeah. Exposure to everything, you'll find out the things she likes, the things she don't like.
Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, she walked around the field by herself quite a bit. I mean, at the beginning, she kind of hung within a few arms reach of me, but after a while, she was wandering all around by herself. So it's a good thing.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. So it's been a busy few days in that respect.
Moving on.
All right, so we'll start as traditional fashion. We teased this last week, but let's talk about the latest movie review.
A little tease of a web dangling.
Oh, the web head.
Swing away.
So, Spider-Man Far From Home.
Oh yeah. So I did go and finally, after last week's episode, went and put my review up on my website.
Okay.
So.
What'd you give? What did you give it?
Well, I hinted at it, say I did enjoy it. So after thinking about it and thinking through it, I always have to give a couple days after I see a movie to think about what I saw, the pros and cons.
All right. So what were your pros?
My pros is when going into this movie, it takes place after the events of Endgame. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I preface is that, like every other movie in the MCU, when you follow something big or follow something else, it has to build on the overarching story, but also focus on the solo event of that character.
Mm-hmm.
So what the director, what the director did, John Watts, he managed to balance both by building it through first the teenage comedy like character moments in the first half, mm-hmm. which allowed for all the comic booky elements that come in the second half to be more grounded with the characters. So being exposed to Peter Parker, he's going on vacation to Europe with his class. You get to see his interactions with his classmates, with Nick Fury, with Quentin Beck, Mysterio, so that not just for us familiar geeks that we know what these characters are up to and what they do, no spoilers, but it allows for people that are non-comic book geeks to understand these characters on a personal level. So they take the cliches and typical things you might find in a teenage rom-com or a coming-of-age tale, but mold it in with the comic book aspect of Peter Parker and the characters that represent the characters from the comics. So once the change switches to the comic book stuff, it feels more personal, and you feel more adrenaline rush when things happen and certain twists happen. So,
I gotta say though, the MCU for a lot of their films lately, when they stop trying to be superhero, air quote superhero, and they go, hey, this is a heist movie, or this is this kind of movie, or this is this kind of movie, and just have these characters in play. Like Black Panther was more or less a spy movie, Ant-Man was a heist movie, that kind of thing, and then they had the superhero characters in there. It made for a better story.
This is why just to lead into my rating, I gave it a 4 out of 5, which is a full price. Nice. So I think it is worth the full price of admission. There might be some issues here and there. You might have some issues with some characters, but the overall enjoyment of the film allows you to appreciate what Marvel Studios does in the MCU. And like you said, they build the story and allow the comic book and the characters to come in. So like you've referenced Black Panther and Ant-Man, there's all those Thor Ragnarok. You also have the Captain America movie, Civil War and Winter Soldier. You have Guardians of the Galaxy. All these movies, you don't even think that they could all work together, but somehow, some way, they all fit together when they come together.
I agree completely. As a matter of fact, from what you've said so far of your review, I agree with the pros and all like that. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, and I honestly think it was. I was actually very surprised at how well Mysterio played out in that movie. I meant all of us knew what was going to happen, and maybe we can talk about the spoilers after.
Yeah,
right.
But just the way they played it off,
yes,
and the way they made it work, and yes,
great. I mean, definitely for someone who's not knee deep into comics and whatever, and most of my interactions with Mysterio are through the animated Spider-Man in the 90s, which great show.
It was.
We can all agree it's a great show.
Oh yes.
And some of those, it's like he flashy and flamboyant, but then and then seeing Jake Gyllenhaal portray that, and then how they use such a modern twist on the character,
it's so
to
great.
Pull it off. It's just like, oh, this is wonderful.
Not only that, the fact that they're playing off of the recent events of other movies. I mean, just using it as a springboard, like you said, to kind of ground the character. Well, not just the stuff with Peter Parker and his schoolmates, but tying. Not to go into too much spoilers, but like the background for this Mysterio, tying it in with all these recent events. I thought that was a great springboard to bring him in.
Yeah.
Also, it's the whole post snap.
Yes.
The blip.
The blip.
Yes.
Oh my goodness! When they were showcasing the blips, this isn't a spoiler. The blip stuff in the beginning of the movie, I was downright laughing.
Yeah, and the funny thing is because of the way they did that.
Yes.
Is they actually, and I heard about this later, is Marvel did an AMA on Reddit, and sure enough, people were asking about the blip because, kids may not grasp it, but those of us who understand how the broader world works,
yes,
when you see how they explain the blip, you have to go, wait a minute. What about ... And you can sit there and you think about it, and he's like, and then Kevin Feige's, oh no, they're fine. That's like, okay, I will suspend reality because I don't know if they actually thought about how that would be interpreted.
Yeah. But the thing is, just the example of that is a perfect example of how they took something fanatical and grounded it. They didn't have to go in depth to explain what really happened after the 5 years when people were brought back. They were just like, this is what happened, and then they just hinted and showed and showcased.
Yeah, and the world moved on, and people had to deal with it, and all the various tie-ins.
So they made the fantastical realistic.
Yes.
Which is why a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films are that great.
Oh yeah, totally.
Agreed.
So
So you mentioned the pros. What about some of the cons?
Some of the cons, there weren't that many. It's just more of there could have been just the way they had some forced plot devices just to make Spider-Man or Peter Parker do things. They had to dumb his character down just to get from point A to point B for certain things.
I can see that.
It was, you understood why, but it was an obvious plot device.
Especially when they get into the third act and the climax, you see Peter doing his thing, and you're like, and it reminds you how incredibly intelligent he is.
Yeah. It's just there's just a couple of moments in the middle part where they had to dumb his character down just to move the plot. But other than that, that's really the con. They just use typical plot devices to move the story along, and
typical
it kind of
cliches.
typical cliches that kind of just went against the character choices. But overall, and the great thing about the third act is when his Spidey sense finally came into play.
Yes, that was an amazing scene.
Oh yes.
Pun intended.
Dun dun dun.
What about you, Professor?
I have to agree. 4 out of 5, I would say, and it was definitely worth the price of admission. I think some of the character interactions weren't MCU quality. I feel like some of the, especially later on, I don't like you said. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but like a certain coupling towards the end, I felt was a bit forced. I think that would have been better as more of a third movie type thing, and I don't know. Just some of the interactions between the actors didn't jive as well, and that's just my personal feelings on it.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm not saying any of them are bad actors. None of them are bad actors. They all did great. It's just, I don't know, just some of the writing was a bit heavy-handed, I guess is a way of putting it. And so but overall, it's everything I wanted out of a Mysterio movie. I'm not a Jake Gyllenhaal fan, and this was awesome. I would love to see, like, later on, if they would do like a Sinister Six movie, I would like to see him back as Mysterio. I'd love to see Keaton back as Vulture.
Maybe we should jump into spoilers after the rest of the stuff. What do you say, Scuba?
Yeah, I think we can spend a few minutes and just do a spoiler-rich Spider-Man, and we'll save that for like the Patreon people and whatnot. But yeah, we definitely make some time for that. But I would love to see. I think they nailed the casting with Jake for Mysterio. I think they nailed it with Tom Holland for Spider-Man.
Yes.
I mean, it's and Marvel again. Let's not make a superhero movie. Let's make this movie just with superheroes in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Make a great movie.
Yeah.
With comic book elements.
Yes, I think that's the thing. Now, if the video game industry could nail it as well for their next video game adaptation,
Assassin's Creed, hurt my lungs.
You all right? We don't need to call a doctor or anything, right? I mean, we got a professor, but we don't have a doctor.
I had to get the bad movie taste out my mouth.
Okay. I mean, for a minute, I thought you were going to talk about that other really bad.
Okay, I was about to ask.
No, I don't want to have a seizure.
No,
just the tip of the iceberg.
We won't talk about that one.
Okay.
We will never talk about that one.
Anyways, upcoming, since we're getting near the end of summer, they have some last hurrah films. So I am next weekend going to see The Lion King, the reimagining of The Lion King. There's been some mixed review.
What?
Sounds like the animals are getting ready for Lion King. Hold your horses, you can't spoil it for me yet. All right.
Newsflash, it's about lions.
There's been some. Oh yes.
All right. Well, I guess we have a
fourth member of this panel right now.
Yeah, I know.
You have anything else to say there? All right.
As long as he doesn't start singing and tap dancing, we're good.
Oh, no Jiminy Cricket going on here.
No, Jiminy Cricket. I'm thinking.
All right. Well.
Thinking the frog.
But yeah, there's been some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been they've already had their premiere, and there's been some mixed receptions, good and bad. Overall, they said it's a good re-imaging. They said a lot of people saying this, they didn't take a lot of risks, but for the people that are fans of The Lion King, that'd probably just be enough. Kind of like how Aladdin was, it was just enough, and Aladdin's made almost $1 billion, so it pretty much doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
The mouse making its money.
oh, they always do. But anyway, yeah,
The mouse could bomb every film into Oscar season and still come away in the black.
oh yeah, it'll be all good.
Just on the film side alone. We won't even touch all the other stuff they diversified in.
So Lion King is the next one on deck.
Okay.
So some of the other summer movies that I'm looking forward to, just because I'm intrigued. The last hurrah movies of the summer, for at least for me, there's probably a few of them littered out there, but the last hurrah movies, the big ones, is Quentin Tarantino's 9th film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that one looks to be pretty good. It looks like QT is getting back to his old roots, with getting knee deep in his writing styles and stuff, like Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs. So we'll kind of see.
Oh,
and he has
really
he has my favorite actor in there, Leo. You know, heartthrob. He's got my heart. But and just because I'm just into stupid, ridiculous action, and I just want to see how insane it's going to be, Hobbs and Shaw. Because the trailers have made it look like it's going to be such a ridiculous fun time at the theaters.
It kind of feels like The Odd Couple.
Yes.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like a real.
Yeah.
Like, we'll do The Odd Couple themes,
Oh yes.
but with these two really hilarious
It's just-
characters.
And what that film looks like, it looks like it's self-aware, and that's what I'm going to appreciate going into it.
Yeah, I'm not a Fast and Furious fan at all. I've watched a couple of the movies, seen the preview for it. I'm down.
Yes.
I'm going to see this.
Throw out story, throw out character development, throw out a lot of stuff that I judge films against. I will not judge this film against this, because I know exactly what it's going to be. I know what it's going to do, and that's all I needed to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I think it's going to be interesting. I think it
Yes.
might be maybe a little over the top. All some of the things
Yeah.
Rock is pushing into his films, which I'm not really against, but as long as it's not overdoing
Yes.
it.
It
So-
looks like Jason Statham and Dwayne Johnson are going to be a great couple in this movie. Great compliment.
You kind of got that taste for it in the Fate of the Furious
Oh yes.
when the two of them interacting. It's
Oh
like,
yes.
oh yeah, the two of them are going to have a very interesting time.
They look like they're going to have a great chemistry on screen. So.
But I know, hopefully it makes up for the quick turnaround Jason Statham's character did between 7 and 8.
You're correct.
So, because it was like he was such a big bad in 7, and then in 8 he's like, what?
Well, they kind of forced them together, so.
Yeah, well, I mean there was other extenuating circumstances,
Yes.
so we can't really say anything against that. But
So, any other last hurrah summer movies y'all are looking forward to that I might not have dropped a dime on?
I haven't really thought of any. I don't even know what our group is planning to go watch next.
Yeah, I haven't looked it up recently. I really hope that they are still going to do New Mutants. Like you said, Dark Phoenix, yeah. I can understand why they would drop it. I hope they haven't, because these are characters that I actually really like, and I want to see them on the screen.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
and the fact that this is the X-Men films really haven't done too much like what the MCU has done, but they've had a couple of
Moments.
a couple of films where they kind of go offbeat from the superhero thing.
Yes.
Like Logan was not a superhero film.
It was a perfect example of a phenomenal film with comic book elements.
Right. This New Mutants was supposed to be a horror movie.
Yes.
And I was so pumped looking forward to this. And if they've dropped it, I understand. I really hope they don't, because they've already pushed it back for almost 2 years. It was supposed to come out February last year.
Oh yes, I remember. I was looking forward to it till they're like push back. Disney bought Fox. Let's just kind of push it back.
I hope they don't. I hope they spent a lot of time making that. They got a lot of talent to do it.
Oh yes.
And I mean, Maisie Williams coming into the Marvel world. Granted, it's via Fox, just like Sophie Turner.
Yeah.
But I really want to see how she does in the character she does. I mean, I loved her in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I loved her in Doctor Who because she was so, it was so off what you, because you know, you see actors when you first introduce them and they are attached to a major item like Game of Thrones, you're inevitably going to typecast them into that person. Mm-hmm. And then you see her in Doctor Who and it's just like, whoa. And then you hear some of the other stuff she's done. Like, no, we just watched the first 2 episodes of Genlock by Rooster Teeth. That was completely out of left field. Seeing that come in, I am so stoked to see how that goes.
Though I'm worried, the third member of our little group doesn't seem as excited about it as the 2 of us. We'll see what happens.
You know what? If anything, it's as I said last night. I don't care if you don't like it. I'm gonna finish watching this because I am hooked.
Make sure I'm there because
you got
I'm hooked.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff I like to watch. I'm going to finish it.
Yes.
Side note: Rooster Teeth just announced a change in the pricing model.
Oh really?
They're going to do right now. If you get Rooster Teeth first, it's like $4.99 a month.
Okay.
Or $5.99 a month. I just got a couple of emails. They announced a 12-month subscription that comes out to be $3 a month.
Oh wow! Okay.
Way to save.
I might have to.
Way to save.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's the better way to go. Is you spend the year-long thing. I mean, it's one of the few drawbacks to the new Game Pass Unlimited they did, because it's cool if you first switch into it because they take whatever your gold membership is and your Games Pass, tie it together, and when your gold expires, then you start paying the $14.99 a month. But it does not look like there's an annual subscription base. And I much prefer the annual subscription over the
Maybe they're
monthly.
going to be kicking it in when that $14.99 actually starts. Maybe they're building it.
Oh, yeah, because the thing is, if you're one of those people, and I know a few, they have gold paid for years out through various things. Well, when you transition into the new Game Pass, you get up to 36 months there. So if you're all prepaid in gold for 3 years, you're not going to pay for this new Game Pass thing until that expires. And the new Game Pass is it gives you all the gold benefits. It gives you access to the library of free-to-play Xbox games on the Xbox console. And post E3, they announced that all the games that are PC compatible fall into that.
So Game Pass will be used on PC.
PC, Xbox, and all the gold benefits. The free games a month, the multiplayer access, all of that. $14.99 a month.
But this is all just Microsoft.
Yeah, this is Microsoft side.
All right.
I mean, there's still the rumor that Game Pass is going to come to the Switch.
Huh.
And I'm really hoping Sony works out some kind of thing where they do something similar, because I don't know if they really have anything comparable to this now.
They have PS Plus, but it's nothing near what Game Pass is.
Yeah, you're right. PS Plus gives you the free games. It's more like Gold.
Yes.
Sony's version of Gold membership. It's not like the Game Pass is such a new thing. I think PlayStation did like the PlayStation Now, where you could get like classic titles.
Well, that's their now is more like their rental service.
Yeah, but you pay.
Yeah.
But Game Pass isn't focused on the old games. If it's a first party title from Microsoft, it's on Game Pass at launch.
Right. Okay.
So
it's the Netflix of gaming.
Pretty much.
All right.
The new pretty much.
Okay.
So
that sounds.
I know you're a
interesting.
PlayStation guy, so I'm not trying to make you convert.
Unfortunately.
I don't need to convert. I have everything.
No.
Everything.
No.
Everything.
Yes.
Plus the SNES Classic. Hate me now.
No, I'm waiting for mine. We keep talking about you getting me a copy
Supposedly,
of these things.
it's at the store ready to be bought.
Alright, so our next topic is that time of year again for the San Diego Comic-Con.
I know it's around the corner.
It is definitely around the corner. Interesting thing, it looks like this is the 50th year of Comic-Con.
5-0.
Yeah, half a century.
This is the first I've heard.
Yeah, we were doing our research for different things. There's several different bylines on multiple outlets that are saying 50th, near 50. So, I mean, not bad for a show that started and then kind of came in with the birth of the box office.
Oh, yes.
Or no, not the box office. The birth of the summer blockbuster.
Boom.
So, but we got some. We're gonna do some theory craft. We're gonna sit there, kind of debate on what we think based on these headlines. We got a nice little list of them here. So we know something's gonna happen at Comic-Con, or we really hope something's gonna happen at Comic-Con about these. And then once Comic-Con's wrapped up, we'll see how we look. So.
Yeah. Credit to Gizmodo for this list.
Yep, Gizmodo definitely, and some of the back and forth were some stuff I read on CNET, so gotta love it. All right, so our first item is Terminator: Dark Fate. Now, the only thing I know about this film is what I've seen in the trailer, and the thing I'm most excited is James Cameron is coming back to this franchise.
Is he actually directing the film, or is he producing?
He's a producer, but even though he is a producer, he isn't one of those producers that just is there by name. He actually put his feet to the ground and helped with the script. He didn't actually direct it, but he helped move it back. Because basically, this film takes place after 2, not like directly after, takes place after 2 by bringing back Sarah Connor and also wiping the rest of the other films out of slate.
Genesis. What are the other ones that came out?
Salvation.
3.
We
Yeah.
pretty much just listened to them backwards, but yeah.
Well, I mean, and the thing is, those were all post the epicness of T2.
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, I was the trailer seemed interesting to me.
Yes.
Comes
out in November.
Comes out in November. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think that it looks, at least from the initial viewing of the trailer and just some of the stuff I know that's dancing around it, is that it looks like they are emphasizing what made the series great. So going back to the grittiness, the rawness that was 1 and 2, instead of focusing on trying to just be bombastic or weird in the next 3. So that's what it seems. And from what I've heard, the whole film takes place within 36. It's just a 36-hour time frame.
Wow.
So it's a very quick, fast pace.
Boom.
So it looks like it's getting.
T2 was no more than a couple of days as well.
Yeah. So that just puts the emphasis on the fact they are making it gritty, going to make it action. And the director is Tim Miller, who directed the first Deadpool.
Okay, I'm in.
James Cameron's producing. He's exercising his pen, and Tim Miller, who gave us the first Deadpool. I mean, that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Canada.
You're welcome, Canada. All right. What about you, Professor? What's coming to your mind? Because I'm sure you've seen the trailer for this.
I have.
And you know this whole this franchise too, because there's a huge. I know there's a comic book side of this.
I've never touched comic books, so hit to my nerd cred. But no, I never got into the comic book side of the Terminator franchise. I've more just watched the films, loved 1 and 2. I was mildly entertained by 3 and 4, and then I watched Genesis with someone who absolutely hated it, so I think some of the hate rubbed off. So yeah.
The hate was probably relatively well received because it was not that good.
No.
I don't typically hate films. I usually walk away and go, and that's it. I won't watch it again. I don't. But watching it with this friend, he was so like, and I was just like, you know what? You're right. So,
those in my relative viewership and my reviewing of films, I've only had that hatred just a handful of times.
And you've done a lot of films.
Oh yes, so
a lot of films.
There's bad films, but having hate for a film is you gotta really hurt my brain.
Yeah. As far as this goes, I like the fact that Linda Hamilton's coming back.
That's a great recast.
She's been really kind of under the radar for years now.
well, since 2, roughly. Yeah. But that's great. I'm. Otherwise, it seems like they're pulling elements from all of these more recent movies, so it could be hit or miss. I like the people that they have involved. I hope that they take that and do wonderful things with it. That's my thoughts on it. So
Okay.
For me, thinking about the trailer and thinking about this, yes, there's James Cameron's back, Tim Miller, but from the tech geek side and the special effects side, the way they're doing these Terminators this time, it seems like it's a hybrid of T-1000 and what they did in 3, being the living nanotech kind of deal. That seemed really cool.
Yes.
And this new Terminator who's the Protector, and it's like, I'm really wondering how they're going to explain this, because they kind of, with all the various films they've come out, T2 really kind of nailed the whole description of what made a Terminator.
Yes.
And then you had the T-1000, such a huge leap forward over the 101, and which was the one Schwarzenegger portrayed. And then to see in like the other films of these different nanotech styles, and then it's like, here would it come back. So I'm really kind of interested to see how that plays out from just thinking about it from a geek technophile type thing. So, and since we're talking technophiles, what's our next one on the list?
The next topic that's going to be having a big presence is WestWorld, a series on HBO. They will be showing a little bit hints and teases for season 3 that will be dropping in 2020.
WestWorld. You've seen that one, right?
no, I have not. I know of it. It's been recommended to me multiple times. I need to just sit down and watch it.
It's a very I thoroughly enjoyed the first 2 seasons, and it's a much more of a thought-provoking show than a sci-fi driven, action kind of show. But it makes you, the overall arching point is what is AI and what is sentient. That is the core element of the story. So watching how certain characters evolve from the first season and in the second season, it's kind of interesting to see how with the certain AI characters on the loose now, off the plane, basically, off this place where people would go and play a game live with these AI characters.
Yeah, for part of the premise, and for you and anyone else, is the idea is that for the uber rich, the people who light cigars with $200,000 bills, if that ever existed,
Right. Yeah.
they would go to this theme park, and they would pay like ridiculous. I think I heard one comment is like $36,000 a day.
Lots
is
of
what
money.
they pay. And they can go into this, and it's modeled after a Wild West town,
Right.
populated by these androids, right? And the people who come, the guests, could do whatever they wanted.
It's basically taking WoW and being able to play WoW in reality.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, that's
so
the
that's how you start, and then things go completely off the rail.
Yeah, and it's more character driven, the story is, and it focuses on several characters, and you just watch how they interact or come across certain situations. And they play the mystery trope very well, because they will start either backwards or in the middle, and then they just kind of fill in the blanks on both the seasons.
Because they do time hops. Like,
And-
here's what's happening now, here's what's happening then, and back and forth.
Yeah.
I watched the first season. I started watching the second season. I was totally impressed with that. Also, several of the actors I'm real fans of. Like, the first season had Anthony Hopkins in it. It has Ed Harris in there, and Ed Harris is a great one to see.
He plays a character called the Man in Black, and he is pretty legitimately a hardcore SOB.
Yes, he is really interesting to see him.
He's one of the big investors in the park.
Okay.
So that's why he's there, and the mystery of his characters all the mysteries that were in the first season in the beginning get answered in the second, or get answered at the end of the first season, but then it opens up the box of mysteries for the second season, and then when the second season ends, it ends with the main antagonist Dolores venturing out into the real world. So she gets off this amusement park, and now
Off the reservation.
It's
Yeah.
interesting you phrase it that way, because when watching the first season, I don't see Dolores as an antagonist. I thought she was the protagonist. But obviously, the second season things go.
Well, yeah, they've been building her up, and it's not much of a spoiler to say she's an antagonist with it, because it pits Jeffrey Wright's character against Dolores. So he becomes the main protagonist against her. So basically, think of it as the light side versus the dark side in Star Wars. So that's how they're setting up season 3.
That should be interesting to see.
With exposure to the real world this time, not just the park.
Speaking of the real world, since we touched on an HBO show, let's do another HBO show, and let's talk about Game of Thrones.
All right.
Season 8.
Yes.
Yeah.
Season 8 wrapped. That ended. We all have our opinions of that.
I do want to say it has been mind-boggling seeing, like just how polarizing this season was. I mean, you had 7 solid seasons and a pretty solid fan base, and then you get to this season, and love it or hate it, it was different.
Yeah.
And threw everything into chaos, and it's like, that's not the note you want to end the show on.
Yeah. The greatest thing in retrospective after watching season 8, Game of Thrones is my favorite show. It became my favorite show from the second Ned Stark got his head chopped off. So, like you said, solid 7 seasons. Solid 7 seasons, and with an 8th season. And in retrospect to the 8 seasons, what I find funny about when you mentioned the chaos and when completely polarizing, the only reason it got polarizing is because what people wanted to happen didn't happen, and their favorite characters didn't do what they think was going to do. But the funny thing is that a lot of stuff that happened in season 8 was foreshadowed for 7 seasons. But
a lot of it, yes.
Yes.
I just feel like without having a book to go off of, I kind of feel like the writing and the direction felt a bit different too.
I can tell you the big reason why the writing and the direction felt different is because it was a shortened season. If it was a full season, I've discussed this with Scuba. If this was a full season, the ideas would have made so much better because they would have fleshed out the character progression better.
And I think that really is one of the that's probably my biggest criticism with season 8 was the progression just felt off compared to what came before.
Yeah.
And I wasn't angry at what happened. I honestly didn't look at any particular moment and go, that was terrible. No, it would just, I don't know, it felt rushed.
Yeah. It was rushed, but what happened was foreshadowed. So when it what I've seen on the forum boards with the fans is not only on top of the fact that they felt a rush, they hated what happened. And that goes tailored to expectations and what you wanted going in.
Yeah,
and that doesn't matter if it's a TV show, a movie, a comic book you read, a book you read, anything. You expect your character to do this, and if they don't do this, okay, it's bad because they didn't do this.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And
But
to kind of carry on, we could spend a long time talking about what we liked, didn't like about the way season 8 ended, and trust me, I share all of those same things. It's interesting that HBO instead is decided to, hey, we see how this ended, now let's see how it began.
That's what I think will be the greatest treat to us, is because, one, there is no book, so they can do whatever they want with the prequel information.
Didn't Martin just put one out about the history of.
Well, there's like
He's
Targaryens?
got some history
he's
stuff.
got historical notes, but the prequel series that are going to be taking place on HBO, they're going to be doing their own thing.
Okay.
So it's far enough. It's the first prequel series takes 10,000 years before the original series, so they have a
Okay.
lot of window to do whatever they want.
So
Oh,
that
yeah.
could
So-
be like the entry,
Yeah.
the dragons coming.
Oh, yeah.
to
Well, it's going to.
Westeros.
Well, the first prequel series is going to focus on the long winter, the long night. So it has to deal with the children of the forest and the first men fighting the White Walkers.
Okay.
So basically, the tagline for that prequel series is like what you hear in stories isn't the real story that was happened. So all the myths and legends that are told weren't really true.
Well, anybody who studies anthropology and whatnot will tell you myths and legends are integral to every culture, and every one of them has some kernel or grain or fact of truth. It's just, again, how did those stories get passed down? Word
Yes.
of mouth. And as we all know, I could tell you something that happened, and when you tell somebody else what happened, the story's going to change.
Yep.
So with this series focuses on the children of the forest, the White Walkers, the First Man,
I really liked
Bran the
them.
Builder, everything that led to the houses. It's going to be interesting to see what actually happened and how they write it out.
That will be fun.
I'll give it a shot. I'm down for it. So.
It's HBO. It's good times.
Yeah.
All right. So, shifting from back over to the comic side of things, we last year for the CW shows, we had the introduction of Batwoman and the confirmation. I'm sorry. Confirmation that Superman and Batman exist in the Arrowverse,
Okay.
and not just on an alternate Earth.
All right.
Did you watch? Hey, are you caught up? Do you mess with the DC shows on CW?
I tried to get into the Arrowverse. I got 8 episodes into Arrow itself, and I had so much else on my plate that I said, you know what, this is too much. And because at this point it was they were already on like season like 4 or 5, something.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
so
I was that I set it all aside and I said maybe one day, but no, I haven't touched it.
from a comics perspective, Batwoman and all of those characters. How do you feel about those characters?
Well,
Do you think they're compelling enough for a TV show?
Batwoman possibly. I've seen the trailer, and I don't know how I feel about it. They did a great job with the costuming. She looks almost comic book accurate. The lady under the mask, Kate. I'm going to kick myself because I can't remember her last name. Kane. Kate Kane. She's got a chip on her shoulder. She doesn't want to associate with Batman that much. She wants to do her own thing. I saw that come across from the trailer that I've seen for Batwoman. There's the whole thing about, in the comic books when they introduced her, what is it, about 10 years ago now, something like that.
Okay.
They introduced her, they brought out the fact that she was a lesbian. That caused all sorts of controversy. I didn't care. It seems like that's going to be in there. Fine. It's part of her character. I don't know. I don't really like how a lot of the Arrowverse shows are written. I'm not into... I watch Game of Thrones. I've watched the MCU. I don't know. It feels too soap opera-ish, So, and that's what I'm kind of getting watching the trailer for Batwoman. So,
Well, to be honest, I think the whole thing with the Arrowverse is they borrowed a lot from the Gotham Rogues Gallery for things. I mean, when they introduced Ra's al Ghul and Talia and the sister, it was like, because they couldn't touch Talia, so they brought in they had her sister Nyssa in there, and it was like, wait a minute, I mean, Queen dealing with the demon, And that seemed a bit much. I do love their Suicide Squad. I do like it much more than the feature film version.
Okay.
So, because they actually had Harley Quinn. Granted, it was a shadow, but it looked like they were really touching on it. But then they kind of shifted away because of this whole, we can't have the cinematic characters in the television characters, yet they have Flash.
Oh, yeah. There were a number of characters that they brought into it that are in the movies and whatnot. I don't know. I got into Gotham, which isn't Arrowverse. Gotham was good. Just recently ended. I'm actually curious about sitting down and watching Krypton. That looks like an amazing series. But I don't know. Arrowverse just it wasn't my cup of tea. So I know of it. I've known people that have watched it, that have discussed things with me about it, and I mean, I like some of what I've heard. Just I don't know, just not. It's not my pace.
Interpretations.
Yeah,
because
it's
the
not my
CW
pace.
has a particular flavor the way they do shows.
Right.
What about you, Ry? What's your thoughts on Batwoman?
The Arrowverse aside, I don't watch those shows, so I have no comment on them. But from what I've seen with Batwoman, it isn't going to be intriguing to see what they do. It seems like they're like you said, pulling a lot of the elements. They have the character design and everything. Hopefully, they can do what they did with Gotham, where they can just tailor it to some kind of story with the influence of all the characters in the rogue allies. Because, like you, I enjoyed Gotham. I liked how it went off the rails in the last season, because that was just amazing.
Yes.
But yeah, like Gotham, when Gotham started, it had a point to do it, and then they were just like, screw it, and then they just brought in everything and everybody and made it their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they kind of do the same thing with Batwoman.
The only thing I'm hoping for is that the first season of Batwoman is not trying to find Bruce.
Oh God, yeah.
Because in this one, for this particular one, the concept is Gotham is there, Batman is known about, but thought of as an urban legend, even
Right.
for Queen, right? Which, of course, in the comics, Oliver Queen and Bruce knew each other, yada yada yada.
Yeah, but I mean,
in this one, Bruce had vanished. Batman has vanished.
oh, okay.
He's MIA. We have no idea where he is.
Okay.
And Kate is doing her best to fill that role as the protector of Gotham.
I'm not
And she refers to Bruce as her cousin.
He is.
So
That is in the comic books.
So I think my whole thing is I hope they do not focus on let's try and find Bruce. And I'm hoping there's a lot of fans who are kind of in that same agreement, because Batman overshadows so many things once you start throwing his name around.
I actually want to comment on that.
Go for it.
I don't like the fact that they're having her fill in for Batman, because the point of her comic books, she deals with a lot more. She deals with a lot more supernatural elements, and I wish they had gone that route with this show instead of her becoming the new guardian of Gotham. That just seems like we're just doing a female Batman.
Yeah, it sounds like more of something that Robin and his characters would do than she would.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't familiar with that. To be honest, my exposure to the concept of Kate Kane and Batwoman is through the DC animated universe.
Okay.
Where they had her brought in, where it was, I think it was Bad Blood.
Yeah.
Where she came in because Batman had disappeared. Dick was trying to wear the suit. Damian was giving him a hard time. Kate Kane and Barbara and all them. And I also like the fact that they took a relatively new character to the Batman franchise and decided to do a show on her. Because when I first heard of these trailers and talking about it, my thought was, oh God, let's hope. Oh God, they're going to bring Barbara Gordon.
I hope they don't use her as a replacement Batman and make it her own show.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at, is don't bring in the elements from the actual comic books, like where she's dealing with, like a group of triads that dealt with like mysticism and all like that. At one point they affected Killer Croc, made him even more vicious and all like that with their mystic magics and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Scarier Killer Croc.
That would be great.
That was a good story. That was
going to
early
hide.
New 52.
Well, I mean, they do have the supernatural element because Constantine is in there.
Which I did watch the Constantine series
And
before it became part of the Arrowverse. I loved that that one season. I wish they had done more. I don't know. I'm more into the
He's held
supernatural
into
stuff.
that role as he kind of came over, and
Yeah.
he's one of the things I really look forward to when I heard he was coming back into that to show up in like Legends of Tomorrow and stuff. But
Yeah, Matt Ryan, great actor.
great, he's Constantine. This one I'm curious about is Netflix The Witcher series.
I'll watch it. I'm curious as well. Yeah, I don't know much about the games. Haven't played them. I have one of them to sit down and play, Witcher 3. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
I think the only one of the three of us who's actually sat down to that time suck of life is Ry Guy.
No wife, no kids. All about The Witcher 3 back then.
And of course, I have the Game of Year edition, so it has both of the expansions, which by themselves are phenomenal. And I've sat down, I think I spent 10 hours and barely got out of the starting zone in that game.
I can tell you this, The Witcher 3 is one of my favorite games I have ever played in my gaming life. It is on my Mount Rushmore of games because it took me a good year to beat the overall map and fill in the most of the games. I haven't even touched the expansions, but just the way the world is driven by the lore and the characters is just
phenomenal.
insane, and just the in-depth nature of it, and just seeing that they're turning this game into a not a movie but a series shows that they want to give it time to breathe and characters to grow, and there's potential for this to be the great video game to motion kind of screen adaptation. Hopefully there could be a film that does that in the future, but this is probably be the closest thing we get to a great video game adaptation outside of the Castlevania animated series.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was some interesting stuff they announced with that because they had their first photos. I'm really looking forward to the Comic-Con panel because the thing I heard is the fact that Witcher actually started as a series of books.
Actually, that's what I was going to ask you, is if you had read any of those novels.
I've never read any of the novels. I just played the games.
Okay. I did read the first novel that was put out. It was like a series of 3 short stories. I think it was The Last Wish, something like that. And I've read that. I haven't read any of the other books. There's like 7 or 8 of them.
Well, here's the thing, though. The books actually are the books of the story that leads up to the first Witcher game.
Right.
So the first Witcher game, they retcon the ending of the book to allow
really?
Geralt to keep going for the video games. Now, it sounds like that this series will be based on the books,
Which
and
is
not
another great
the
thing.
video game, which I think is really good because we all know the video game. I mean, these are phenomenally well-crafted games.
Uh-huh.
And we all know Geralt because we're following him. But this series looks like it's focusing on leading up, especially because some of the pictures of the actresses who are like playing Yennefer and Ciri, they look much younger than they do in the video game, which it shows them as much older. Now, from what I understand, from what I've heard, is the Blood of Elves is the story they're going to be working on for this first season. And that's the Ciri meeting Geralt.
Okay.
So that's what has me hooked. Is in fact this could be based on the books, which were a European-based phenomenon that turned into a video game.
Right. Okay.
So it'll be interesting seeing what they do and how they adapt. So hopefully people have been waiting to actually see videos outside of the pictures. So hopefully there'll be a teaser trailer, a release date.
Oh yeah,
And
even if there's like a few minutes of footage of how they're gonna play this out, that'll be phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
Alrighty. Now for the probably the gorilla in the room. Although, is there really a super intelligent gorilla in the Marvel universe?
Yes. Oh. Jeez. I just read an issue that had a minute. Willoughby? Or it was something like that. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I know DC and Marvel have been throwing characters back and forth for years.
Yeah. Marvel does have one. He's a guy turns into a gorilla.
Okay.
It's like some ancient character they just brushed off for a short story recently.
Fair enough. So we have Marvel Studios, the MCU in there.
Is that what you wanted to talk about?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Let's save the big boy for last.
Okay. We'll hold on. Well, we got something else in the wings, and that is for us sci-fi geeks. And the panel that was announced was Enter the Star Trek Universe, where they're going to talk about the latest Star Trek shows, and probably the one I'm most excited about from my childhood is Patrick Stewart returning as Jean-Luc Picard.
Oh, yes.
And his show Picard. That seems really cool.
Yeah,
So-
I really want to see this. I'm worried they're going to put it behind the CBS paywall.
It's what it looks like. It looks like it's being listed as all access, which, to be me personally, I think they're doing that because they realize how saturated television was with Star Trek. I mean, think about it. We get into the mid '90s and the late '90s. There were 3 different Star Trek shows running, and then we get Star
Not at
Trek
any one
Enterprise.
time. Oh, only 2 at any one time.
Voyager, DS9, and
Not at the same
TNG.
time.
Yeah.
Nope. The first couple seasons of DS9 overlap with the last 2 of TNG. The last 2 of DS9 overlap with the first 2 of Voyager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
So there were a couple of years there where it was just DS9. But, yeah.
And then, of course, there's the Enterprise, which was the prequel show from before the Federation.
Which that has all sorts of mixed reviews. I loved season 4 on that one, though. When they started getting back to basics, I liked that show, and then they canceled it. And it's like, dang nabbit.
Yeah, but, I mean, apparently they're going to... What do we know, Ryan?
Well, they just said they're going to go over several projects that's going to be part of the Star Trek universe, including the animated show Lower Decks and the Jean-Luc Picard show, are the 2 big ones that they said they're noted.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that because, I mean, to see one of the Star Trek actors come back to a role for a new series.
Yes. I've heard rumors about it being in the Abrams verse and all like that. I hope not, because the Abrams verse would have completely changed TNG,
Oh,
so
most definitely.
So
Yeah.
I how can you have Picard be in the Abrams verse, and you can't have that happen because you don't have whatever TNG would have been in the Abrams verse to spring from, the springboard from.
Well, maybe that's something they're going to do through the writing, because it looks like this might be a retrospective. Picard left Starfleet and then was asked to come back, or maybe he's writing his memoirs and he's sitting there remembering what happened.
Yeah, I hope it just ties back into the original TNG. I'd rather not have them throw in all these extra complications that don't make sense.
They have the J.J. Abrams Star Trek stuff. They can do their thing, and then this one could probably just tie him back to the original.
Yep,
Could be.
that's what I'm hoping.
Well, got that one now. Now we can move on to Back to the House of Mouse and Marvel Studios.
Oh, I got them comics.
Marvel's panels, because they're going to have several.
Yeah. So, just a quick overview. They said they're going to have a 90-minute panel about the future of the MCU. So, what do you expect them to drop about the MCU going forward past Far From Home?
Well, they've already discussed doing, of course, the Eternals, Black Widow, Doctor Strange 2 has been announced, Guardians 3, which we got James Gunn back for, which he'll do once he's done with the Suicide Squad. Spider-Man 3 is on the books. A third Ant-Man movie.
Black Panther 2.
Black Panther 2. Yeah, they have a whole slew of sequels that they're getting ready for, plus a few new ones like Black Widow and Eternals. Eternals, we hardly know anything about this one. We know Angelina Jolie's in it. They said she was going to play Circe, I believe, which former Avenger. That's about all I know.
Yeah.
Super powered. Yeah.
I think I saw a blip that the actress who played Eleven in Stranger Things has been signed on to join the Eternals as well.
You mentioned that yesterday.
Yeah, they did say she signed in to be part of it. What we do know from skimming on the surface, because Marvel likes to keep a tight lock on stuff, is that the Eternals is going to pretty much map out the history of the MCU. So it's going to take place over thousands of years.
Actually, that makes sense.
So
Knowing
a lot
what
of
I know about the Eternals.
yeah. So that's what they said it's going to do, and it's going to help flesh out a lot of the cosmic stuff that supposedly has been hinted at throughout the last couple years of the MCU. And one of the ones I hope, because it's pretty much almost well known that it is being filmed, is the Black Widow movie. So I'm curious as to see if they're going to actually put some footage out there for that movie, and then also map out what are they going to focus on in MCU Phase 4 or 5, whatever they want to call it. And it seems like they might be going cosmic more so based on a lot of the rumors out there. So you have
especially if you watched Far From Home,
Yeah.
you really got to get that feeling that the cosmic side seems to be the focus.
Oh, yeah. So you mentioned the Guardians of the Galaxy 3. We have the Eternals, and we have rumors out there about you can correct me, a Nova film.
I didn't hear whether they announced it or not, but it was one thing that they were playing with.
Yeah.
I did hear about that, and I would love a Nova movie.
Yeah, and with certain properties coming back from Fox, it also hints at things that they probably want to do in Phase 4, things they probably can do in Phase 4. Which leads to one thing things that Marvel likes to do at these panels is just come out of left field with some surprises. So
let's go with that. What's your
prediction,
surprise?
My prediction. This is what my prediction, just based on tea leaves out there, not rumors, just based on tea leaves out there. Everybody knows Disney bought Fox. Included in that deal is all the X-Men and the Fantastic Four characters finally going back home. And one of those sets of characters that intrigued me coming back home, I love the X-Men, but it's not the X-Men. It's actually the Fantastic Four.
Marvel's first family.
Oh, yes. And the fact that a lot of stuff they do deals with cosmic, my surprise or shocker or left field announcement that I think Marvel will do is bring out the cast for the next Fantastic Four. That's who I think that will be the surprise that nobody's talking about right now, or none of the rumors that are out
such
there.
lock and key right now.
And maybe just a little hint, just to throw in there, just a little nugget. The next Doctor Doom. What do you think is going to be that left field surprise that nobody's talking about, or nothing that is on the rumor mill that might come out of left field?
I'm actually still kind of hoping for some more stuff with like Adam Warlock.
They did hint at him.
They hinted at him at the end of Guardians 2 from several conversations you and I have had over about various characters. He seems one who's really kind of interesting, and I'd like to see see if they talk about him or some of the other people that kind of operate in his particular circle.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. With him being, like you said, he's been introduced basically. At the end of Guardians 2. I don't know what they would do with him though, because he was so tied into the Infinity Gauntlet related material, and Thanos. The two of them kind of had like a frenemy relationship with each other. So with Thanos gone, with the stones gone, I have no idea what they would do with them.
Supposedly gone.
Okay, good point. Yeah.
Based on what the Ancient One said in the Endgame, the stones keep the universe intact.
True.
So they might be destroyed physically,
can't destroy them,
but they can't be destroyed. So they're out. They're probably out there.
They might
in remanifest in a different form.
And that would be a great way to bring in Warlock, is that, have him, searching for the remanifestation of the gems. That's an excellent idea. Your surprise idea, the Fantastic Four, I would really like to see them bring them in. If they're going cosmic, this is a great time to get Galactus right.
You didn't like the Cloud?
No, I did not like the Cloud.
The Cloud?
You mean the same Cloud that showed up in Green Lantern? Yeah, no.
Well, he's a little more brown. He probably ate too much something. Not the wet fishes that we like.
I just want to clarify. No, I did not think the Cloud in
Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Green Lantern was the same as Galactus in Rise of the Silver Surfer. No, I know it was. I can't remember the DC character's name. 2 different companies, but it's the same nonsense.
Yeah. But anyway, still thank you, Canon.
Well, I can't really think of any other way to trump, because I know you're a big fan of Doctor Doom.
Oh, yes.
And if you bring I think you could probably do Doctor Doom without Fantastic Four, but because that seems almost too cliche to bring the two together.
There's a lot of theories that fans are putting out there. Well, nothing tied to Marvel, but theories that people say how Doctor Doom could be the next big bad because of the post-snap world, on how they brought everything back. And we saw what those ramifications did in Spider-Man. Why can't those ramifications help flesh out other new characters that might come out in the MCU, like Doctor Doom,
yes,
or Galactus, or Annihilus, or anybody else that I can't even think of off the top of my head? Who do you think they could bring as a big bad villain, Professor? That hasn't been hinted at or could come in because of the post snaps.
That's a loaded question, because with the
I can bring it down to just say top 3.
Top 3, Doctor Doom is probably at the top. Galactus would be number 2. Honestly, I really want to see them do Doom right for once, because we've had 2 versions of Doom that were terrible. And I would like them to sit down and just do a single Doom movie, just to, introduce the character, his background.
To do a villain movie.
Right. And that would be a nice twist, especially since we're now over 20 movies into the MCU.
Oh, yes.
This is a perfect time to throw in a villain movie. I'm actually going to extend it to 4, because there are 2 other characters that I want to bring up. Mephisto.
He is a very good character.
He would be perfect to bring in now. Maybe have something about, like, the Infinity Gems were kind of keeping him at bay, because he has this thing about manipulating people and all like that, and messing things up for all the different heroes. This would be a great time to bring him in and just have him as a subtle evil nudging people, throughout the next set of
like
movies.
What Thanos did for this last saga.
Right. But not as out in the open leading an army. Mephisto doesn't lead armies. He manipulates everybody until everybody goes, "Hey, you," and then they gang up on him. My 4th thought goes back to Adam Warlock. In the comics,
I think I know who you're talking about.
In the comics, he used the gauntlet to remove all good and evil from his soul. That evil manifested as the Magus.
Oh, yes.
And I would love to see that, because since they're going cosmic, he's also on the table, as a potential villain. And since Adam Warlock has already been introduced, Magus would be a great one. So I don't know how much they would, again, saying what I said about Warlock, I don't know how much they could do with it, but I hope they surprise me.
Well, even if they aren't following verbatim the comics, they have found a way to make elements of the comics work on the screen.
Yes.
So they could. There's. I have faith in Marvel that they can make anything in the comics work on the big screen.
Well, there was some hints that it looks like they might do Secret Invasion as the next major arc.
Okay. Yeah. So should we knock on that spoiler wall? Knock that spoiler wall down with Spider-Man?
No, but I mean, there's a lot that goes into it.
I'd say give it a week or two, and then we could probably start dropping the heavier Spider-Man spoilers and dip into that.
Okay, so how about as a primer, let's talk about Captain Marvel.
Okay.
By this point, Captain Marvel is now released digital. We can kind of touch on that. The Skrulls were a major part of Captain Marvel, and the way that the MCU interpreted the Skrulls this time was complete left field from the comics.
They were good, as opposed to just... Well, even in the comic books, they weren't just outright evil. They're a race of conquerors. It's just how they do. You know,
Yes.
They were more kind of a neutral. Skrulls look after Skrulls. They could be silly sometimes. The Fantastic Four comics have tons of silly Skrull stories. But you know, when they come together, they get stuff done, and they will start knocking on other planets' doors. You know, the Kree Skrull War, Secret Invasion. And they cause all sorts of chaos with their shape-shifting and replacing people and all this other stuff.
Yeah, and it felt like in Captain Marvel, it felt like we pointed out, it's like, yes, there are Skrulls, but not every Skrull can be classified this way. There's like factions of Skrulls.
There could be bad Skrulls out there. There could be, internal fighting, which is true with a lot of things.
I mean, we
in
know
the
that
comics.
the end of Captain Marvel, there was a group of Skrull that she was trying to relocate, but we realized through the way they said it, the Skrulls were displaced and were already kind of isolated in different factions. So that's a plausible way to go into the next major arc.
Yeah.
Is seeing how they kind of play in there, and I think it would be nice if, for introducing the Fantastic Four, we introduced Super Skrull.
Oh yes.
Number 5. Fifth potential villain, you know?
I mean, Super Skrull seems like such a great concept of a character.
He could be part
in
of
the
that
comic.
faction that is not good.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of not even worry about doing another origin story for the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Let's kind of leave that.
Just do what they did, like Homecoming.
Exactly. I love the way that it's like we've been beat over the head with Spider-Man's origin. We know Spider-Man's origin. We know the catchphrase. We just roll with it.
Yep.
Right.
Origin should only play in characters that we don't know.
Exactly. Just random factoid that I wanted to throw in there. In the Ultimate Comics, the Skrulls were represented by a race that they called the Chitauri. The Chitauri were the aliens that they used in the first Avengers film that Loki led to Earth. So, who knows? Maybe they do have that same connection. Maybe the Chitauri are
A corrupt Skrull.
corrupt Skrulls.
Yeah, I can go with that. I can get behind that.
MCU finds a way to backtrack and tie everything back, so it's possible.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that they found some really clever ways to do that.
Pardon my language, but America's ass.
Truly, red, white, and blue.
All right, so we hit on all the stuff for Comic-Con.
I did want to say one thing, because you guys brought out your surprises. I want to throw in... I've just been, commenting primarily on what y'all have been saying. I doubt this will happen, but I hope, beyond hope, that at some point they decide to announce a Moon Knight movie or series. Because that is my personal favorite Marvel character.
He is a character that I've heard about a lot, but I don't know much. So it would be interesting to see that character come to life, just because I don't know the history.
Yep.
So I would like to see it done. I do know, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, he's schizophrenic.
Or yeah,
multiple personalities.
Multiple personalities. Okay. Yes. He's a Jewish former Marine and soldier of fortune who got turned into the Egyptian moon god's fist of vengeance. So there are a lot of people that make comparisons between him and Batman. He was, much like Batwoman, more focused on the supernatural side. He was introduced as a villain for the Werewolf by Night. Jack Russell. I'm not making that up. So his whole shtick was he wore, this moon costume with silver weapons, and they slowly transitioned him to being a superhero, but he's more on the violent side, more Punisher-ish. Doesn't go as far as Frank Castle, but yeah. He is the last of the real, B-level characters that they have not touched on in live action.
Why do you think they haven't touched on them yet?
Probably because of a lot of the similarities between him and Batman. And he took a bunch of his money that he made during his mercenary days, invested it because one of his personalities is a millionaire playboy type, knew how to work the stock market, and built up this fortune, and that personality, Stephen Grant, ended up financing all of Moon Knight's stuff. So you kind of get the rich playboy, then he turns around and is this mass vigilante, running around at night. But I would like it if they didn't really touch on that as much as, the supernatural stuff. I would love to see Marvel go further down that path. We see them going down the path of the cosmic. I want to see them go down the path of the mystical and all like that. Doctor Strange 2 is coming up. I'd rather see him be more, mystical and spiritual and all that stuff. More magic, less cosmic, And I'd like to see more Ghost Rider. I want to see Moon Knight show up. I would love a Werewolf by Night movie. So I don't know. That's just my
it's possible. Like you said, Doctor Strange is, they brought him into the MCU, so the mystic is there. Yep. On top of how you have Thor and all them out there, so maybe they can go down that route at some point.
Yeah, and they brought the most evil book of all in the MCU, the Darkhold, into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So they had that in there with Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they have the foundation that we know that the mysticism and occult exist within the Marvel Universe, the MCU. Take that ball and run with it. That's what I'm hoping for.
With a lot of heroes up in space in the cosmic, they're going to need some more heroes down on Earth.
Agreed. And that ties back into my whole Mephisto thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway.
That sounds good. I mean, there was some other comic book news was it related to Comic-Con or just comic book news?
Which one are you?
The stuff you're talking about pre-show, they announced the list of all the stuff for a new Carnage.
Oh, yes. It's a huge...
That caught my eye because that's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains.
Oh, yes. They're doing a series called Absolute Carnage. It's going to be the big event in the next... coming up in this month. It's going to tie into Amazing Spider-Man, the Venom series, which is currently running. Absolute Carnage itself is going to be probably about a 5 or 6 issue miniseries itself. They're having a bunch of other mini books like Scream. Scream was introduced in the early 90s as another symbiote, a female symbiote. She's getting 2 issues of her own Absolute Carnage Scream, 2-parter. There's a whole... I looked at the whole list and I'm just flipping through it going, I'm going to get everything in here. Because I was a huge fan of Carnage, still am. My first big crossover that I collected was Maximum Carnage.
I did too.
And so, yeah, they've been building up with this in Venom and the Web of Venom one-shots. And I hope they go all in and go crazy with it. Because that's what you need with Carnage,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on, he's the only character that made the Joker pause.
Yeah.
So,
One
all
of
right.
the most interesting crossovers. But we'll get to that another time.
Oh, yeah. We got plenty of time to talk comics.
Oh, yeah.
All right, So we talked Comic-Con, we talked that. What are some other tech news things?
The Nintendo Lite. Switch Lite.
Okay.
Supposedly.
I heard about this kind of peripherally. Let's start with the Switch. The Switch was Nintendo's next console, and they decided to go, instead of a docked quote-unquote console like the Xbox or the PlayStation, they really stuck to what made the Game Boy and the DS great, and made essentially a console you can carry.
Yes, they brought the best of both worlds, and it showcased the innovation that is Nintendo to its peak degree so far. Like you said,
that was like that's another one of those lightning in a bottle things. Switch comes out, and it's so many things you can do with it.
oh yes, it showcased, well, Nintendo with the big boys out there, Microsoft and Sony. They know they can't compete on that level when it comes to those consoles and the hardware. So they always have found a way to try to be innovative, be that third source where, hey, we're over here doing our thing, and the Switch is just the Nintendo Switch showcased that. And now it's been out for a couple years. It's starting to show why a console in your hand is a dream come true for a lot of gamers. When you can put a game like The Witcher 3 in your hand, Elder Scrolls in your hand, Doom in your hand, and keep the amazing detail and the graphics and the gameplay intact, it shows a lot of possibilities and greatness that is the Switch, and it's been outselling guns a-blazing since it's been released.
Well, it sounds like it's a great console. What do you think of it? What have you heard about it as far as the Switch?
Well, there weren't a lot of games that I really wanted on it, so I kind of avoided it. I may go and get my hands on one at some point because they just announced Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 for it, and
Exclusively for the Switch.
yes, it makes me sad because I played the X-Men Legends games plus the two Ultimate Alliance games.
The Legends games, very underrated and amazing games.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been a PlayStation guy for a long time. I kind of skipped over 3 to do the Xbox 360 because that's what all my friends were playing. But I came back to the PlayStation for the 4, and I was really hoping when I heard Ultimate Alliance 3, I was like, PS4, Switch. I'm like, dang damn it.
It just shows the strength of Nintendo, and they're starting to move back into that strength they had in the 80s and the 90s.
Oh yeah.
There's a couple of other exclusives that I've heard of that I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but that's the big one. I'm like, of course they have their Smash games, which are great.
Smash Brothers, Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
Any of those.
Zelda.
I mean, they really nailed it. Okay,
And
family-friendly games and family-friendly stories and platformers. They've got it. I mean.
So that's why I'm looking at possibly the Switch. I don't know about this Switch Lite though.
Yeah, so all right. So we have our baseline for the Switch, and now they announced the Switch Lite, which is $100 cheaper than the Switch.
Yeah, the Switch is $299. The Switch Lite is going to be $199 out the door.
Okay, so what am I sacrificing?
You're sacrificing what the Switch represents. So basically, what the Switch Lite is a step down from what the Switch is.
Okay.
It's a straight up, in comparison to the Switch is a console in your hand, whereas the Switch Lite is just basically a handheld.
Okay,
It
so
can't use the docking station.
Give me specs, man. We're tech guys.
All right.
We mess around
Nintendo
with
Switch
technology.
Lite. The first things first, I said it's a handheld, so that means it can't be docked in that docking station like the Switch. Where the Switch, you dock it, you can play it on your TV, you can pull out the dock, go play it on the go. This is just straight up on the go. It still has the 32 gigabyte internal storage, just like the Switch. Slight battery improvement, so instead of 2.5 to 6.5 hours, it's a whopping 3 to 7 hours. Oh snap! It's still going to be able to support most of the games on Switch, but only majority of the games that can play in handheld. So a lot of the party games, kind of like 1-2 Switch, Mario Party, the Just Dance games, anything that is party related that you would play plugged in on this TV, you'd have to buy more accessories to be able to play it when it's standing on its standing on its tabletop form.
Okay, so what you're saying is, with all these extra accessories, we're probably looking at close to I don't know, $300 to play it.
To do a party game on the Switch Lite.
Yeah,
I'm getting that vibe too.
Yeah, with Nintendo, they always seem to hit the tip of the iceberg where they're doing something great, and then all of a sudden they retrofit something and fall back. So you have like the Nintendo Wii, a great innovation when it came out, and then the Wii U. What is that? So it seems like they come out with the Switch, great innovation, what people have been dreaming for years, and then they come out with this, they're coming out with this light and saying...
Well, I mean, what would be the point of coming out with it? I mean, it sounds like the Switch is such a phenomenal piece of hardware on its own, and it's like, $300 for a console power that you can carry and add additional controllers to and do party games.
There is, from everything I'm seeing, there is no point to even get this console because it goes against the whole idea of what the Switch is. Why they created the Switch in the first place. Because if you just want a handheld, just go get a DS. They already make one.
That's fair.
So, yeah, it's...
I also see here, it's like, okay, battery, but there's a couple of ports that are removed, like there's no USB or
supposedly there's
card slot.
It's still, you still can put in micro USB to expand the storage capacity, just like the Switch, but it's just the fact that you can't play most of the games.
Yeah,
without extra
it's going to be
space.
on my Christmas list.
So I look more forward to when they actually announce the Switch Pro.
Okay, what's the Switch Pro supposed to be?
Well, nobody really knows, but we can dream the dream.
Oh, no. That's fair.
So, a bigger screen, bigger memory, 4K native, capabilities. So maybe you can actually play some of those legit games that are on the Xbox One X and PS4 Pro on there. Maybe even extra battery life, maybe like 10 to 12 hours.
That would be nice.
15 hours.
Because those batteries exist.
Oh yeah, they do.
They exist.
Oh yeah. So all this information credited to IGN. But yeah,
I love their analysis on things.
But yeah, it's just an amalgamation of just WTF. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to spend $199 on a handheld device when you can spend $199 on PS4 or Xbox One X.
Yeah, I feel like I was more excited back in the 90s when I got my Sega Game Gear.
Hey.
Ouch.
Maybe a Virtual Boy.
Oh, Virtual Boy, yes.
Ouch.
Neo
But
Geo.
no. I actually did own a Sega Game Gear, and it was awesome.
You dreamed the dream. At least it wasn't a Jaguar.
Yes.
What's new in the world of comics?
Well, as we mentioned, Absolute Carnage is the big thing that's coming up for Marvel. DC's in the middle of their Leviathan event. Those are the two big ones right now.
Okay. You said you were catching up on some backlog stuff, some current stuff.
Oh yeah, I always keep multiple piles of comics that I'm just... Right now I'm reading through an old Batman series called Broken City. I just finished that one today. That was back in the early 600s. It was right after Jim Lee did his Hush story. Broken City, it was interesting. I'll probably butcher the writer's name, Azzarello. I liked the story. It's not his best. It's not his best, but it's entertaining. I liked it. there's that. I'm catching up with a lot of recent DC stuff. I'm reading Justice League Odyssey. I'm catching up with Justice League. Marvel, they're right at the end of their Age of X-Men story, which, my God, it did not need to be this big. They were trying to reproduce the success of Age of Apocalypse from back in the 90s, and it's fallen flat on every level. There's some good elements to it. They were trying to build this alternate reality world, and they wanted it to feel as epic as the Age of Apocalypse world was. When you read those books, you really get into it. The writing just pulled you in, and you can just see this world and all the different books dealing with different aspects of that world. It really painted the whole picture for you. This Age of X-Men actually isn't doing that. They wanted it to be like that. All of these different books tying in and whatnot, they just, I don't know, it feels too enclosed.
Oh, okay.
They didn't build the world like they said they were going to. It feels too narrow focused, and it just they didn't need all the issues to get the point across that they've just been beating people over the head with this whole weird world. I don't really want to go into it.
No, you're
It's
good.
all
You're
good.
good.
It's all good. You provide a good explanation. It's where it didn't need to be.
Yeah, and yeah. Other than that, I don't know. I have more fun reading some of the older stuff. DC's pretty solid right now as far as their current books. Their writing teams are top notch. It has a lot to do with Jeff Johns and Jim Lee both being, at the top, dealing with the creative side of things, helping direct the DC universe, and they're getting top talent. I mean, Brian Michael Bendis just left Marvel to go over to DC because Marvel isn't doing well, in my opinion, just in their books in general. Just everything under Joe Quesada's control just seems to flop, That's my personal feeling. So
Okay.
there are some good books. Venom's fine, I am looking forward to this Absolute Carnage, but I don't know. I feel
You have some well-deserved concerns
Right.
after reading Age of X-Men.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we'll see
That's
what
fair.
happens.
I'm curious to see how that goes. Can't wait to hear about it.
All right.
So definitely. Alrighty. Well, we have been chatting a while, gentlemen. A while. I guess we can probably wrap this up and